green? Oh, okay, there we go. Just what you need is to hear me louder, right? So obviously I'm not Butch, and this is not the fellowship hall. So Butch is not with us, and our class in the fellowship hall has been studying the book of James, and today we were looking at James chapter 4, 11 through 17, so through the end of the chapter. So if you're visiting, thanks for being here with us this morning. You normally hear a much better speaker for this class, but he's not here, so you're stuck with me. And I'm just going to start out by reading James 4:11 so we know what we're discussing. We've talked much about this book being a how-to book for being a Christian. So in that context, here's verse 11. Brothers, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against his brother or judges him speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. There is only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor? Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Why you do not even know what will happen tomorrow? What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. And as it is, you boast and brag. All such boasting is evil. Anyone then who knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it sins. If you would, let's pray. Father, it's your servant Dan here at Linder Road Church of Christ this morning, Father, and you know us well. We don't have to mention names or even circumstances, Father, but we just pray that you would bless the time that we spend together, Father. There's more gifted men, more gifted speakers, Father, but help me to just be genuine and give my perspective on what I've learned looking into your word, Father. And I hope that it will make the difference in people here that it's made in me just looking at it and just enjoying chewing on your word, Father, and letting it digest into my heart, Father, to be the man you want me to be. Help that to be the same to all of us here this morning. We just pray that you'd be with us. In Jesus' name, amen. So I got a text this morning saying that I'd be in this class, and I said, wow, I did not expect that. So we're just going to go with what I had planned anyway. So you'll understand what I mean in a minute. One of my favorite comedians is a guy named Brian Regan, and some of you have heard him, and I just wanted to start with that. So I'm going to relay this. I think you're going to see how it ties in. If not, hey, just say, it was just Dan. Okay? So I go to the doctor. This is him talking. I go to the doctor knowing I'd be in trouble because my cholesterol was high. But it was high last year, and I haven't done anything different. So what are the odds of cholesterol plummeting for no reason? Come on, 190. 250? How could that happen? Got Burger King coupons all in my pocket. Going to the doctor is the only time I feel as an adult like a little kid. Doctor says, did you do what I told you to do? No, I didn't. What should you have done? I should have listened. What are you going to do from now on? I'm going to pay attention to things you say. When are you going to start? I'm going to start right now. I told the doctor I was having heartburn, and he gives me a list of things that cause heartburn. He goes, I'm looking at the list saying, well, I know how to get it. It's like going to the hospital for a cannonball wound and them giving you a list of things that cause cannonball wounds. Standing directly in front of a cannon. How true that is. I know how to get a cannonball wound. Do you have any ointment for, the cannonball wound itself? And doctor says, hey, by the way, you could lose a few pounds. Thank you. Only a doctor has carte blanche on insults. Then you pay for the insults on the way out. Oh, by the way, you have a mole that looks kind of bad. Great, how much for that, doc? When can we get together again with Big Fat Mole Man? What does he care, right? He's a doctor. Well, he does care. He tries to avoid words like pain. Instead, he uses pressure. If he says pressure, you might feel some pressure. You might want to buckle up. By the way, in the dictionary, a word for pain is pressure. I'm going to swing this 2x4 towards your head. You're going to feel some pressure. Hakuna Matata. Bring it on. I'm good under pressure. I like pressure situations. So, all that just to have a little fun starting out. But why bring that up talking about James? Well, James, he starts out, consider it pure joy when you encounter various trials, multicolored problems, right? James says, testing faith, perseverance, mature and complete, not lacking. By the way, perseverance is caused by endured pain. You want wisdom? So these are things I'm saying that James has said. You want wisdom? Ask God. Don't doubt. Don't blame God for your evil desires. Be quick to listen, slow to speak. Have genuine religion. Have a tight rein on your tongue. Look after orphans and widows in their distress. Keep from being polluted by the world. No favoritism. Faith without works is dead. Thank you. Watch your mouth. Heavenly wisdom is pure, peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy, good fruit, impartial, sincere. Submit to God. So are there any other ways to insult us as Christians? Because who hasn't blown it in any of these areas? I mean, sometimes I wonder why I want to teach classes, because I have failed at everything that I'm teaching. So what does it mean when we look at chapter 4, beginning in verse 11, to speak against one another? What does it mean? This is just some ideas that we'll be talking about. What does it mean to judge a brother? What does it mean, or does this mean that we can't point out other sins? Why or why not? What is the difference between the kind of speaking against judging here and proper correction? What do you think a person's motivation might be in each situation? What does it mean that this person speaks against and judges the law? What law and how? What is the reminder in verse 12? So what kind of attitude should we have about judging? So slander, when it says not to slander one another, my looking up of the word here, it says deceptive, destructive, devious, using lies or half-truth resulting in damaged reputation. So, looking back to James chapter 3, 13 through 16, it says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it by his good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, of the devil." So, to me it says that slandering someone is actually even demonic. John 8:44. You're probably going to be familiar with this. Jesus talking. John 8:44 says, "You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desire. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies." Psalm 101:5 says, "Whoever slanders his neighbor in secret, I will put to silence. Whoever has haughty eyes and proud heart, I will not tolerate." Can you think of a good example, a good biblical example of this? So I read this morning, thinking about this specifically, and this is one, I don't know that I have one single favorite Bible character outside of Jesus, of course, but I enjoy reading about all of them, but boy, Moses, wow. I mean, obviously you're going to know him in heaven because he looks like Charlton Heston and has gray hair, so everything turned gray after that moment on the mountain. But I was just thinking about when Aaron and Miriam secretly speak against Moses. I can't even read the text to you because I just became so emotional just reading it just this morning. Because I just love watching and observing godly people be godly, be holy. It just moves me. And Miriam and Aaron, they badmouth their brother. God hears it, and he says, "Let me tell you, I speak to people in visions and dreams, but Moses beholds my substance. I speak to him like a man." And so, Miriam, she becomes leprous. I mean, God's so angered about this, he leaves them. He just gets away. I think they would have been dead had he not left the situation. So that's Numbers chapter 12. If you get a chance to read that was a quick synopsis, but one of might be a peculiar favorite, one of my favorite passages, but I just so admire Moses and his humility in all this. Proverbs 10:18, "Whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and spreads slander is a fool." And then 16 through 19, false witness on a list of things God hates. Yeah, so that's one of the things that God hates is a false witness. And if it's on God's hate list, we probably ought to stay far away from it as we can. Titus 3:2, "To slander no one, to be peaceable and considerate, and always be gentle toward everyone." Can you think of someone that was the exact opposite of that? How about Nabal? Remember Nabal, Old Testament? He's the one that has a great wife, but his name is Fool, and he doesn't help David out, and David's about ready to go kill him, but his wife intercedes for him, and she says, "Sorry about my husband. His name is Fool for a reason." So we don't want to be like Nabal. Matthew 5:11, "Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me." When the one passage that I think about on this one was Philippians chapter 1, where Paul says, some people are preaching the gospel because they think it's going to cause me harm. Because you know what? I don't even care. As long as the gospel is preached, I'm good with it. Okay, so Paul's attitude is great. The people that were preaching and causing problems was not great. We need to stop judging by mere appearances, but instead judge correctly. John 7:24. Romans 2:1-3. "You therefore have no excuse, you who pass judgment on someone else. For at whatever point you judge another, you are condemning yourself, because you who pass judgment, do the same things. Now we know that God's judgment against those who do such things is based on truth. So when you, a mere human being, pass judgment on them and yet do the same things, Do you think you will escape God's judgment? If you want more on this, Romans 14 is really good. I struggle with that a little bit because a lot of times I think you are looking at two sides of the same coin when you're talking about weaker brother, stronger brother, because both attitudes need to be right to live with to live peaceably with one another. Okay, so I have some illustrations for you because if you're not a great teacher, you have to have props and things. So I've got some. So one thing I did this morning was I planted some sunflower seeds. So I've got dirt. It's good dirt. It's like Miracle-Gro dirt. It was also watered. Okay, so we're going to sit this here, and we're going to watch it grow. Now, I heard this illustration one time, and I thought, wow, that's really good because so we're talking about judging one another, right? Whose servant are we? Okay, so we're God's servant. Obviously, I think there are times that God looks down from heaven and says, Dan, grow, man, grow. But since God is omniscient and all-powerful, He can do things in my life, move things around to where I'm uncomfortable. The shoulder, I'm uncomfortable. I don't like the pain with the shoulder. I don't like the messed up sleeping. It's warped my attitude. But in other ways, it's been grateful. I'm grateful for it because I feel more compassionate toward people that deal with pain all the time. I'm thinking that there's supposed to be a light at the end of my tunnel, but nevertheless, it's helped me make better contact with people that are suffering all the time. So, what do we tend to do with fellow servants, fellow pilgrims on our path to heaven? Here's what I've done with my kids. Grow. Come on. I don't see anything happening. Does that seem silly? I mean, I planted some grass at my house, and we went on vacation, and I came back, and miraculously, I had some grass where I put seed down. Okay? But that was like 7 days later, right? Had something started happening right at the get-go, at the very beginning? Something was happening, right? Do you, as mere men, do you know what's going on in the life of that brother or sister? Do you know that those roots are growing, although you may not see? Still nothing. Nothing there. Now, I might come back in a couple weeks and might have a sunflower. So what's the point? Being careful of how we evaluate things. You may have said of someone, I just wish they were more faithful. Well, how's your faithometer doing today? I can tell you, shoulder, a lot of days not so good. Bad attitude. Snarky. I mean, man, naps are good right now, if I can get a nap. Jacob and Laban and Jacob's kids. Okay, so remember how ticked off Jacob was on the way he was treated by Laban and giving him, first it worked him like a dog, and then cheats him with his older daughter, but he had worked, and 7 years seemed like a few days, so he really liked Rachel, right? But he gets Leah. And he says, man, this isn't right. You shouldn't do things like this. But it was God working, because what had he done? He had been a cheat. Okay? So he's judging Laban. So what's my point here? Romans says, you judge people for doing certain things, and you do the same thing. So wasn't that exactly what the situation was for Jacob? I mean, you look at, do you realize when you think about it, all the patriarchs were liars? I mean, now Jacob, he took it to a whole new level, but nevertheless, I mean, Abraham and Isaac both lied about their wives, and then Jacob, well, there's a multiplicity of things. So, 1 Kings, slander in the Bible. How about 1 Kings 21, 1 through 16? Remember Naboth's vineyard, what happened there? The king Ahab wanted Naboth's vineyard. So Jezebel conspires. They slander Naboth. Naboth gets killed unjustly. So example there of slander. We're not to slander one another. God wants all believers to speak kind and edifying words about each other. Matthew 25 in the negative sense. You ever consider that? Matthew 25 in verse 40. I tell you the truth, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me. Now, that's talking about doing good things. However, if you take that in the negative sense, if we judge on things, I don't know if the word inconsequential is right. If we make a wrong judgment on our brother or sister, would it not be the same thing as doing so to Jesus himself? That's what I'm getting at. Make any sense? Usually there's comments in this. Yes, Dana. Yes, thank you. Right.
Thanks. You're not supposed to break your brother down and speak ill against him, even if it is true.
Right. Okay. So the Greek meaning talking about speak against, and so even if it's true, is that the right thing to do? Yeah, John.
Yeah. Similarly, I was looking at some of those passages you were mentioning, and in Romans 14, it always sticks out to me at the beginning of that passage. They're talking about eating meat versus eating vegetables. 14:3, Romans, let not the one who eats despise the one who abstains, and let not the one who abstains pass judgment on the one who eats. I see a relationship there about your motivations, right? Are you passing judgment to, push someone down? Are you despising them? Are you looking down on them? Or are you trying to, help encourage someone? Kind of like the difference between criticism and constructive criticism. You look at the Pharisees, the religious leaders of the day, and Jesus talks about how they would shut the kingdom of God up in people's faces. And in the immediate context in James, he's been talking about pride and humility in the verses preceding this.
Right.
So I think he's also talking about, not just trying to push people down to make yourself look better.
Yeah. I don't know that the people normally think that. Another great, anybody else? Another great passage, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29. Really, all of Ephesians 4 there, or a lot in the context there, but just verse 29 I'll read. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. That's a, wow. I mean, that's a lot said right there. But only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Okay, so maybe kind of what we're looking at is, can we not give the benefit of a doubt? Hey, yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you bring that up, but I heard years ago Chuck Swindoll mention, and I'm sure he got the phrase from someone else, but it was called attitude determines altitude. And you can take that however you want to, what attitude, altitude with God or altitude with your fellow brother. And you mentioned the relationship part. So I'm going to say this. I walked into church one day. I won't even say what it's about. And the brother said something to me. We weren't especially good friends, and he ticked me off. I mean, I could hardly worship because I was ticked. And I talked about it a little bit, and all of a sudden I became convicted that, you know what, I've got a bad attitude. So I went to that brother. I said, I've got a bad attitude, and I'm sorry. And I'm going to try to comply with what you talked to me about. And that brother mentioned something that I had said to him years before with no relationship. And I ticked him off. Wow. Talking about humble pie. I mean, I'd eaten the pan and everything. So that, dear brother, is one of my greatest allies in the world today. So anyway, man, if we could just get the attitude right, have this mind in you that was in Jesus, right? Philippians chapter 2. The solution is to intentionally think of positive words to say, but that's not just enough. It's giving the benefit of a doubt that God is working on that person. Okay? Something that comes to mind. We can't take things always at face value. I've seen some bumper stickers in our parking lot, and I'm like, really? But hey, maybe they just bought the car and they didn't know, okay? I have posted, or actually reposted, something that my mom had posted, and Clint sent me a text saying, brother, did you see what that said? And I looked and go, no, I did not. So, thank goodness I got somebody that watches me on Facebook and corrected me. So, stop judging by mere appearances, but instead judge correctly. Not can't read my own writing. Not washing, okay? So what did the Pharisees, they get all hyped up about them not washing before they eat, the disciples not washing before they eat, right? And you're unspiritual while not honoring. So Jesus, what does Jesus say to them? So they say, oh, you're not washing your hands. Pharisees and the lawyers, they say, you don't wash your hands, so you guys aren't doing what the elders have said, what our forefathers have said, okay? And Jesus comes back at them and says, well, hey, how about when you say Corbin? I tell you, honor mom and dad, and you say, well, I can't give you any help monetarily because this stuff's devoted to God. Well, yeah, so it's devoted to God, so you should go help mom and dad, all right? But they didn't see that. They were trying to be spiritual and missed the mark. My belief is that so this is the writer of this material. My belief is that we should not use our own opinions or convictions to judge others. Okay, so this is his example. For example, if I have decided that my teenage children should not watch an R-rated movie because some violence or something, that's good and well. But I should not judge and look down on another family who allows them to do so. We should not use our own opinions to judge others in gray areas. If the Bible does not speak to a situation clearly, then we should give others the freedom to make their own choices. So some of the others I wrote down were, my kids don't get cell phones until they're 16. Skirts to the knees, to the ankles, to the floor, dragging behind them by 3 feet. 1 Timothy 5:20, as for those who persist in sin, rebuke them in the presence of all, so that the rest may stand in fear. So, like Jacinda was talking about, I have a relationship with my primary care provider. And, he and I are good friends. I mean, we pray together from time to time, get together, go to a movie, spend time in prayer together. He looks out for me, and when I've got an issue, actually anyone in my family, he goes through great lengths to take care of whatever the situation is, okay? So the reason I bring that up, when you rebuke someone, and listen, I've been a member here for 30 years. I've been rebuked numerous times by the shepherds. You think, oh, Dan, what is your problem? Well, I mean, I've been here a long time, growing pains, And I've known every shepherd since I've been here. Loved every single one. Spent time, I think I've prayed with every single one of them in one way or another. So, and they've all been good, godly men that I appreciate very, very much. When I think about going back to Miriam and Aaron talking against Moses, okay? We really have an obligation to show respect and honor to the men that God puts to shepherd over us. And I don't know that I've always practiced that, but I've tried to apologize if I didn't come across in an honoring way. Years ago, I'm a young driver, so obviously it's years ago. I'm delivering, I won't even say the town. I'm delivering to a business, someone that had, place membership, but they had not been going for a long time. And so the shepherd sent them the letter saying, hey, we're not responsible if you're not going to be here. Okay, one of those letters. So I don't know if they considered it being disfellowshipped, or I'm not really sure. Okay? But I know that wrath was opening up as I walked through the door, and they remembered me as being a member here. And as they started to pour mouth my shepherds, I kind of felt like maybe I should just step back a little bit, because maybe God was going to deal with it at the moment, because, I really think we ought to honor those that, I've been in deacon elder meetings. I know the pressure that they're under. I know the things that they have to deal with. I know I just get weepy when I get the notes from them that they've prayed for my mom or they've prayed for me. I'm not really sure where that fits in on judgment. In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. I think of Joshua 9. Okay, so I guess we're talking about, we're moving on to how we deal with. Do we have any more questions on judgment before we transition into the next phase? Wow, I just covered it so thoroughly that we have no, wow. Might have some judgments on Dan after the class is over. So some of the other verses that would work with James chapter 4 transitioning here. Proverbs 27:1, do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. Proverbs 3:5 and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Isaiah 46:9 and 10, remember the former things, those of long ago. I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. I say my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please. Romans 1:10, in my prayers at all times, I pray now that at last by God's will, the way may be open for me to come to you. So, we should not make plans without seeking God's will, without knowing God's will. Was it God's will for me to be a UPS delivery driver? Well, I think so. I mean, spent a lot of time praying about what direction I would take. And it was, and there was nothing spooky about me making the decision. I mean, we prayed a lot. And Cheryl, when we lived in Orlando, before we moved back here to Idaho, and I really didn't know much about UPS. I'd met UPS drivers when I worked at the mall when it first opened, but then we moved to Florida. I'm doing all these other things, and Cheryl says, hey, they're hiring for Christmas help. I go, sure, yeah, let's do that. I got to working with them, found out it's a good living and good benefits, all that stuff. And so we moved back to Idaho, and I immediately start seeking to get a job there. And everything works out. Our center split, and I wanted to go driving as fast as I could. So I went to the Nampa Center. I went driving faster than the guys that would have been with me over. And, we prayed about it, and things worked out pretty well for me. Things that did not work out so well. How about Joshua chapter 9, where Joshua forgets to seek God's counsel when it comes to the Gibeonites? Okay, so, I mean, it's so embarrassing when you bring up stuff like this, because I'm going to have to shake hands with Joshua one day. You know, all of us that have said impetuous Peter, always putting his foot in his mouth, I mean, seriously, you're going to have to face him one day, okay? So I try to put that in proper context here. So, but Joshua, they don't seek God's counsel. What wisdom are they using? Going back to the earlier part of James. Come on, people that were in the class back in the fellowship hall. Yeah, so they're looking. It's worldly wisdom, right? Worldly wisdom. Hey, looks like a dog, barks like a dog, has a tail like a dog. It's probably a dog, right? But in this situation, the Gibeonites are using deception, and they pay a high price for this. So making plans is a way to be organized. Plans can give us clear goal to work toward. The problem is making plans for ourselves without stopping to consider if those plans match God's plans. So back to, are we doing this without seeking God? The person in James 4:13 is not praying and asking God for direction. He is not saying, if it's your will, I'll go start this business. He's saying simply, he's simply making plans according to his own logic, what he thinks is good for himself. Perhaps this person may later sprinkle his plan with a prayer and ask for God's blessing. Have we not done that? Have you not done that? You know, you go off into something and then you say, Lord, please bless this. You know, bless this mess, right? Example of someone that seeks counsel on something important. How about Nehemiah? He hears what's going on in Jerusalem. And man, this guy, he's got a high position, and he's seeking God's counsel because he's concerned about his fellow Israelites. He's not, you know, Nehemiah, what are you doing, man? I'm not seeing anything. But he's spending time praying. Oh, by the way, I meant to use this other illustration too about judging. Now, I don't know exactly what he had in mind for a spec, so I've got this is a chocolate chip. Okay, I think it's pretty good spec, right? So my lovely assistant here. So I just need you to put this in your eye. Okay, there you go. So now, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you get that. Okay. So you see the problem? So there you go. We're good now. Thank you. Yeah, and it's sugar-free. You wouldn't even enjoy it. So my dad did that illustration years ago. You see the problem with it being judgmental? I mean, and the whole James, he's talking about looking in the mirror, right? And so if I've got an issue with Dana, you know, and we've known each other a long, long time. We were young guys when we met. And, you know, before I talked to Dana, man, I would be looking in the mirror a long time because I know he's a good man. So before I would say something, I'd go, me and the Lord would be talking first, okay? Because I think, whoa, I'm so messed up. I better reevaluate before I talk to that brother, okay? So I know that's kind of backing up a little bit. Do not take your future for granted. In the parable of the rich fool, Jesus describes a self-made, successful man. He accumulated lots of stuff, made lots of money. He built lots of storehouses to hold all of his stuff. He's successful in the world's eyes. But he died, and God looked down and said, "Fool, what will he do with all of his stuff?" We are not assured of another day in this world. We're like a vapor that appears for a moment and then it's gone. So since we can't be assured any more time in this world, we should first of all be thankful for the time we have. We've got today. Secondly, we should use the time that we have wisely. Redeem the time by building things for God which will last. Thirdly, we should pray more and trust the Lord for our future. We should live every day, every moment, depending on God to sustain us, to give us success. We should not make promises or guarantees easily since we cannot control the future. Jephthah. Let me just give you that one. Jephthah. Be careful about the things we wish for the future. Good for me right now would be 8 hours of sleep. True or dare. So I just want to leave in this, as far as 17, where he says, anyone who knows to do good and doesn't do it sins. I remember True or Dare when he came and did the thing for leaders in the churches here. He said he was mentoring 5 to 10 men systematically by plan to help these men be future leaders like he was himself. Okay, what can we do? What can we do for good today to build one another up, to do good, and to help us all be mature in Christ. Thank you for being here this morning.